Hey guys, I'm back and I'm gonna do some Reddit forums. Mostly, am I the asshole? I'm gonna read some scenarios, kind of give my input, and then, yeah, go from there. Um, this look or whatever, I know it's a bit much, but I have a makeup page on Facebook and I just did a live, so this is what I created quickly. And, if you hear my little boys, I apologize. They're with their dad. They're fine. It's just my son, he's almost 2. He squeals because he has fun with toys. So if you hear squealing, I apologize, but this is the closest I can get to quiet. So the first, am I the asshole? There's a huge edit. I'm not going to read it until afterwards. So I'm going to read the original and then I will do the edit and go from there. So the I can't think, the headline, it says, "Am I the asshole for wishing my husband would get me a Christmas gift?" This just sounds sad. I don't know. So let's see. I don't know if I'm being materialistic. My husband says I am, so I want to post here and get some objective judgments. With Christmas coming up, I did want a gift from my husband, mainly for the symbolism, like the thought of getting a Christmas gift. I know he doesn't have much money because he's very reluctant to work and skips going to his part-time job most of the time. Okay, that's weird. Sorry. So I told him it could be something small like a little stuffed animal or a keychain or even a Christmas card. But today he told me he doesn't have money and won't have any until next year because he spent the last money on a video game he has been wanting. He says I am materialistic for wanting a gift, even though he asked for several things which I already bought, and that Christmas should be about time with family instead of material things. So I do feel guilty, and like maybe I am wrong, but I'm not sure. If it matters, I pay all the bills and living costs, so it's not like I've ever asked for anything. He did get me a card on my birthday when I asked him to. That's really sad, actually. So I don't think I'm that materialistic, but I do feel a bit bad. So it is unreasonable for me to want a Christmas gift, given that it would be really cheap, or is it a reasonable desire? First of all, okay, my husband and I, when we first met, we've been together over 8 years. We were really broke, and I mean really broke. And we made each other Christmas cards our first Christmas. I mean, we were together maybe 3 months at the time, but I still have that card, and he still has his. And he never had a pair of fuzzy pajama pants. So I went and got him a pair of fuzzy pajama pants. These are so fuzzy and they're awesome. And, they're maybe 10, $12, but he loved them and we were super broke. And it's the thought that counts and the Christmas card. So it's not, I wouldn't say that's being materialistic. It's just you want to be appreciated. Also, there's that book, Love Languages. Some people, their love language is receiving gifts. Doesn't have to mean, they're expensive, but just kind of like a token that someone's thinking of you and maybe a token of appreciation. That's what I get. I mean, I love getting cards and stuff. Like sometimes my husband, he'll give me a blank card and write in it, and to me, that means more than anything in the world. We have a whiteboard on our fridge that we'll write for, need to get this from the grocery store, that. The other day, I woke up and he put my nickname. He's like, I love you, my nickname, because my nickname's embarrassing. He's like, I love and appreciate everything you do. And I wanted to cry because that is so incredibly sweet. So I'm going to read just what some people said, and then I'm going to go to the edit. People are saying, okay, one person, not the asshole. Go return his gifts and use the money to buy yourself something. Agreed. Do this, wrap it and put it under the tree. Absolutely dump him. And let's see if there's... Yeah, OP says her husband told her to post it here. Then OP tells him he is the asshole and you won't buy him gifts anymore because he spent his money for video games and you want to buy things with your money. Not the asshole, OP. Like the commenter said, buy yourself advance Merry Christmas. And true, if he's skipping going to work, he doesn't have money, she's paying for everything. And she's not asking for much. And to me, that just seems really sad. So I'm going to go to the edit. She said, adding this after the post. Okay, thank you to everyone for the supportive comments and for hitting me with a reality check I'm not ready for. To be honest, I think I have just been in denial that my husband is only with me for money. I guess I should have known because even though he worked full-time when we were dating, he never took me on dates, and that's fine not to go to restaurants or stuff that costs money. But there is free stuff you can do, and we only ever sat at home, or I would invite him to different places, but he never bothered to suggest something like a walk. And at a time, it didn't seem like a red flag, because to me, being together was important, regardless of what we were doing. But looking back, it feels a bit weird that he never wanted to suggest something. Secondly, after we got married, after a month, he actually told me he never loved me. Oh, and was looking for a financial sponsor. And when he told me this, I tried to take my own life. Oh, that's heartbreaking. And after that, I could not accept the reality, so I pretended he never said that, and then he got a part-time job, but then stopped going and was going half of the time, and now after this post, he didn't see the post, unrelated. He told me straight that he will never work again, and that if I don't like it, he can just move out because he isn't going to be around me for free. Who says that? I'm afraid I will go into that dark mental place again. For now, I am just going to suppress and ignore while continuing to be on meds and psychiatric and psychological care. But one day I will leave, probably after all the travel rules are over and I can pack my bag, be gone in the blink of an eye. So that is heartbreaking. So basically he is only with her as a financial sponsor. That's really gross. I mean, what an asshole. She's absolutely not the asshole. He is. That's really sad. Okay, here's another one. Can kind of relate to this one too. Am I the asshole for assuming my friend declawed her cat? My friend's old cat died a few years ago, and recently she got a new one. I went to visit her recently, and her new cat was declawed. I asked her if she declawed her cat, and she said it was none of my business. I got angry since I'm against cruelty to animals, and started telling her that it's cruel and she should be ashamed for declawing her cat. I guess I jumped to conclusions because of her answer, but she told me to get out and slammed the door in my face. I was complaining to a mutual friend about it, and he said he went with her to the animal shelter to get the cat, and that it was already declawed by previous owners. I feel guilty for assuming, but at the same time, why wouldn't she just say it? I called to apologize, as she told me she didn't want an apology and not to contact her again. We've been friends for years, since college, and this is a total surprise for me over a misunderstanding. She's the asshole. That's what I'm just going to say. I'm going to read a few people's. You're the asshole. It wasn't a misunderstanding. You immediately judged your friend and called her cruel. I'm against declawing a cat too, but I'm not going to treat a friend that way. True. You're the asshole. I feel guilty for assuming, but at the same time, why wouldn't you just say it? Because you're the type of person who would lecture someone on animal cruelty about the pet they just adopted to the point of getting thrown out of their house and then continue griping about it to anyone who would listen. And my husband and I, we had 3 cats. And he had a black cat, Kit, that he adopted. His neighbor, she said that she was basically going to kill him if my husband didn't adopt him. And he adopted him. He was probably about 5 years old at the time, the cat. And then my husband had another cat when I met him, Cece. She was probably about 14, and that was his ex-girlfriend's cat that she abandoned, and he just kept her because he wasn't gonna just, I don't know, give her up to the shelter or whatever. He took her in. Then I had my cat, Toot, who was about 5 when I met Justin, and she had her claws. Cece and Kit did not. They were declawed. Well, my son, I'm sorry. But some people on Facebook, they came at me. They're like, Clarissa, you seem like an animal lover. Why did you declaw your cats? That's barbaric. That's insane. That's cruel. You're an animal abuser. Yes, people said this. And I said, when we got, Kit and Cece, they're declawed. Toot, whom I got as a kitten, she's not declawed. So that kind of pissed me off that people came at me without knowing or bothering to ask. So I can relate to that. And it's like, whatever, you adopt an animal, and if they're declawed, you can't help what the previous owner did. I have a dog, Gus. I'll try to put in a picture. He is amazing. Thing is, I adopted him from the animal shelter, and he lost an eye. He was severely abused that people shot him up with a pellet gun, where he has scars just peppered across his body. And he lost an eye due to that. And some people actually think that I caused that, and no, absolutely not. So it's like, when you adopt an animal, you get them as is, but some people, like this lady, are just assholes and assume. So I don't know, this one bothered me. Like, she seemed like she was on a high horse, and I think maybe her friend had enough of her, I don't know, just always being opinionated, maybe always, I don't know, just being a bitch to her, that she's done. She doesn't want to be friends with her anymore, and this was the last straw. And I don't think the, OP realizes how bad she treated her friend, and she thinks it's, a simple argument. In reality, it's probably much, much more. So, let's see. Am I the asshole for not being sorry that I didn't believe my daughter's knee was hurting? I have a 15-year-old daughter, and my husband is currently out of town. I have a lot of projects that need to be done in my yard, and I really needed her help. On Friday, she told me her knee was hurting after her run. She was limping. I told her, it's funny how your body always seems to malfunction when I need your help. You can just stay in bed all day if you want. Because it's true, she has a history of feigning ailments in order to get out of things she doesn't want to do. She hasn't done it much since she was around 9, but I still have trouble trusting her when she says something is wrong. She said she would help me, and I told her we could take her to the emergency room if her knee still hurt by the time the yard work was done. We worked the whole weekend, and she complained a lot, but I was almost certain that she would magically be better by the end of the weekend. This morning, though, she said her knee was hurting badly, and she could hardly walk, so I took her to the emergency room. It turns out she sprained her knee. I told her to tell them that it only started hurting today, but she said it started hurting Friday, and I was questioned. Fortunately, nothing bad happened, but they said that due to how much she had to use her knee after it was injured, it'll take longer to recover. I decided to keep her home from school today because I don't necessarily want her telling people that I had her doing work when she told me her knee hurt. They wouldn't be getting the full story or context, and she has a tendency to exaggerate when I do something wrong. I do feel slightly guilty, but I told her that this wouldn't have gotten to this point if she the point it did had she not had this history of lying. She is pissed at me. She told me that she was in terrible pain all weekend and that she couldn't believe I didn't trust her. She doesn't seem very interested in talking to me, but I feel like this is partially her fault for creating a situation in which I couldn't trust her. Am I the asshole for not wanting to apologize? Yes. Okay, it said that she had a lying problem up until age 9. She's 15. So if your kid's saying something hurts, you should believe them. And then basically, she had a problem with her kid lying, but then she wanted her kid to lie for her when they went to the ER saying it just started hurting that day instead of a few days prior, which seems really hypocritical. And then she kept her home from school because she basically didn't want her daughter making her look bad. So, yeah, I have an issue with this. Let's see what people... Okay. This one got 81 awards. You're the asshole. 1,000,000%. The full story she'd be telling is that you made a shitty assumption about her, forced her to go an entire weekend without necessary medical care, and that you tried to get her to lie to cover up your negligence. All because she was a literal child 6 years ago. She had issues with lying. Yeah, I can see why you don't want that getting out. And then edited. Also, you suck for pretending to be so fucking morally outraged at your daughter lying to you in years past, which is, actually pretty developmentally normal for kids to do. But then asking her to lie for you to the doctors, gross. Clearly you're fine with it when it benefits you. I agree. She pretty much said everything I wanted to say. Okay, OP is lying and getting her kid to lie because she knows her behavior would be perceived as child abuse, because it is. And because she knows that school and hospital employees are mandatory reporters. She's a real peach. Edit, you're the asshole, obviously, OP. Okay, and then there's a good chance that the hospital will rightfully report her to CPS. I hope that they do. And, yeah, she might. I don't know, that one's kind of messed up. Okay, this is a good one. My husband and I were discussing this, last week. So I think this will be the last one, maybe. I like doing these, and when I'm able to, I don't know, I want to make the most of my time. Okay, am I the asshole for sternly telling my wife I get to invite whoever I want, whenever I want to my house? Okay, okay, I read that. My wife is a stay-at-home mom while I do work full-time. We have 2 kids that I help do 50% of their care, while she handles cooking and cleaning and the other 50% of childcare as well. First of all, those percentages don't make sense if he works full-time, but I'll continue. I'm sociable by nature and am fast at making friends, whether at work or outside of it. The problem my wife has is that I invite friends and coworkers, guests, over every few days to my house for dinner or lunch. Restaurants aren't an option now due to budget. My wife said she has to cook for my guests, though I never tell her to cook this or cook that, nor ever complain about her choice of meals because it depends. The guests eat whatever she feels like cooking, yet she complains that she has to cook for extra people, which takes effort, and time, and also since I sit with the guests, then she has to serve them by bringing coffee, preparing the table, etc. Since I told her I don't do these chores, but I thought that since this is her area of responsibilities, then where's the problem? I have a lot to say already, but I'll continue. I invited a few guests for Thanksgiving, 6 people, and when she found out, she lost it, saying I should have consulted her first. I said there is no need because they just eat whatever she cooked, no problem. But she said she wasn't going to agree to cook large portions and for 6 extra people. Aside from serving them and handling hosting, that is too much for her. I told her she was making a big deal out of it and should just stop freaking out over extra plates and glasses and whatnot. She said she didn't agree, but then I eventually had the guests over, and after they left, she started yelling at me, saying she was not mine and my guest server, and that I should stop having them over. That is when I told her very sternly that it's my house, and I get to invite whoever I want, whenever I please, and called her unreasonable to react like that instead of being welcoming to the people who wanted to spend time with us, unlike her family who cut us off completely. But she shouted that she was done with being on my beck and call and having to be forced to take care of my guests in terms of serving and cooking just because it's her part of chores. And she told me that if I want to continue to have guests over, then I'll have to step up and cook for them, which I thought was quite rude and unfair of her. We went back and forth in this argument, and she then stopped talking to me and started giving me the silent treatment, making me feel like I committed some sin by having guests over. Info, I just wanted to explain that my wife's main issue isn't about cooking itself, but having to cook extra for the guests, which is understandable, and I tried to compromise by suggesting we set limits for when my guests visit to avoid having to include them in dinners and whatnot, and also suggested we limit the frequency of those visits, but she stated she will still have an issue with it and gave me the options of either handling the hosting myself or just completely stop having them over or take them out to restaurants, and then restaurants consume money, and she was the one who advised against going to restaurants. Also, the reason I said it's my house, I meant that it's my house too, not as if it's mine alone or hers alone. My wife has a huge part in it, and she definitely gets a say in what goes on and what doesn't, and we don't usually disagree except for this issue. Well, first of all, I'd be upset if my husband invited people over just without me knowing, and then making sure like my house is clean. I have 2 little kids. There's toys everywhere. I am a stay-at-home mom. It's a hard job, and just making sure everything is presentable. And then if I'm cooking and I don't have enough warning, then I have to run to the grocery store, grab more of whatever we're making, and make sure there's enough for our guests or whatever. And then if he's not helping her with the cleanup, I would be absolutely pissed, especially since he does 50% of the care. Well, when is he doing 50% of the care when it sounds like he has guests over a couple times a week? She has to cook, she has to play hostess, she has to take care of the kids, probably give baths and whatever, and then she has to clean up after them. Yeah, I'd definitely be pissed. And I don't think he's doing 50% equal with his chores or whatever. I think he's just saying that. So I think he's the asshole. And yeah, I would say, if you want your friends over, you cook for them, you play hostess, you clean up after them. I'm done. But that's just me. So, okay, this one got 181 awards. Bro, you're the asshole, especially if you aren't helping. Please tell me exactly how you are 50% child care parent when you have presumably a 40-plus hour job and spending conservatively 4 to 8 hours a week entertaining guests. Because the only way the math checks out on that is if you count the hours you and your children are presumably asleep and count the hours the guests are there, which is extremely disingenuous. Willing to bet the children are sent to their rooms and aren't interacting with the adults, which I point out. You're doubling or tripling her workload of keeping a regular house while you sit on your ass while expecting her to take up all the slack of meeting the expectations of a proper host. It's also apparent that you don't cook because there is a significant difference in cooking for, let's say, 4 people and cooking for 6 people. Yes, because the whole inviting 6 extra people for Thanksgiving, yeah, I mean, I have horrible anxiety, and I would be so upset with my husband. So I just wanted to add that in there. Just because they will eat whatever you cook doesn't mean you have nearly tripled the amount she needs to make, and then on top of that, made it more complicated as many dishes take longer to prepare properly if you need to make large quantities. Never mind all the dishes and extra work after the meal, which, let me guess, you don't help with that either. Seriously, if you don't understand the complexity of the work she does, you can shut the fuck up or do it yourself, because I'm certain if she refused to feed your guests, you'd be the first to decry how poorly she is behaving as a wife and hostess. Edit, oh wait, she did threaten that, and now you're decrying it's her responsibility. Where do you think the food she is cooking anyway comes from? Do you believe she has the powers of Jesus, is able to feed 10 people from the amount of food that would normally feed only 4? Do you even know how to use the oven and stove? The sin isn't having guests over. The sin is not understanding the work your wife does in the household and not understanding that while all you do is eat the food, how much work goes into preparing a good meal, being a good host, and all the cleanup afterwards. And then when your wife explains it to you, being too much of an asshole to figure out that feeding all of your friends is a lot of extra work, even if she isn't changing the menu for the day. If you don't have the ability to cook at her level for 10 plus people at a time, you definitely better shut the fuck up. Your wife is definitely in the right here. And I agree. Agree 100%. Okay, and then someone put, let's add in that he's sitting on his arse talking to his friends like a guest while she does the actual hosting. So, who's looking after the kids while she preps, cooks, and entertains with you, just looking on benevolently? Exactly. OP is acting like his home is a restaurant and his wife is the chef and server. Fuck that shit. You're the asshole. I'd rather my husband spend $15 to eat a lunch special than to cook and clean for all of them. Fuck that. Yeah, it's like, okay, if he were to just go to a restaurant like maybe once a week, it would be way cheaper than having guests a few times a week, because, you know, if you're making steak and you have to make 4 extra steaks, it's going to cost you. So I agree. He's definitely the asshole, and I don't know. Me and my husband, I like reading this stuff to him and getting his point. He's like, oh no, I would never do that to you, and vice versa. It's called respect. So, let's see. Trying to see. Okay. I think this will be my last one. If you like these, let me know. I mean, you don't really have to watch this. It can kind of be like just listening like a podcast. And I wouldn't mind doing longer ones if people enjoy these, because, I don't know, I'm hooked on Reddit whenever I have a free chance. I'm usually reading, and it's interesting, all the forums. So, am I the asshole for escorting my niece home after she messed with my daughter's doll? I, 34 female, have a daughter, 11, and a niece, 7. Sorry. About 5 houses down from us. He woke up and he's like, from his nap, and he's cranky, so I'm sorry. My daughter has a decently sized collection of dolls, ranging from American Girl to Baby Alive, She loves all of her dolls dearly and takes very good care of them and understands how precious her more expensive dolls are. American Girl dolls, they're like $100 a piece, so that's pretty pricey. Her favorite doll is an American Girl doll with very curly hair that needs to be taken care of gently. So whenever her cousin comes over, she puts her up on a high shelf in her room and is very clear in saying that she cannot and will not play with her doll on the high shelf. She paid for the doll entirely by herself, so it has a lot of sentimental value as well. I don't find her behavior bad, and I'm happy she's setting a boundary. So as long as my daughter's rule is followed, I don't interfere. Yesterday, her cousin came over to play, as she usually does on the weekends. Everything was going as well until I heard my daughter screaming bloody murder. I went upstairs to find her doll clutching in her hand with straight hair and a brush in my niece's hand. Turns out my daughter left to go use the bathroom, and the niece climbed her nightstand to get her favorite doll and wanted to do her hair. I comforted my daughter, first telling her that this was a fixable thing and that I'd put her doll's hair in rollers and she'd be fine. I sent her off to her dad so that he could take over while I took over with my niece. I tried explaining to her why touching my daughter's doll without her permission, especially after she had been told multiple times not to, was rude. My niece insisted my daughter was a bully for not letting her play with it and wouldn't budge. So I called my sister to make sure an adult was home, packed my niece's things, and walked her home. Before we left, I explained to her that she couldn't touch things my daughter did not want her to touch, despite her still not budging, and she could come play again if she apologized. At the door, I explained to my other sister, who was at their house at the time, what happened. I told her I'd call my sister later and that was it for the time being. Today, my sister called me after I left her a voicemail and a text thread explaining everything. She told me her daughter cried, saying her aunt and cousin were both bullying her, proceeded to call my daughter's doll a stupid toy, and that my daughter should have just let her play with it in the first place. I continued to try and tell her my side, but she also wouldn't listen. I'm not really sure what to do. I've gotten lots of mixed opinions on this whole situation from friends and family. I kind of just want a verdict. My daughter renamed her doll, so I forget what her original name was, but she's a Ruthie. I still don't know her last name or what collection she's from, but if you want to see her curls, there they are. Edit. So we've taken her hair out of the curlers, entirely ruined. There is quite literally no coming back unless I find a new method or a miracle happens. I'll probably just have to get her an entirely new wig. Let us all wish farewell to Angela's curls. Okay. I don't know. I don't think she's the asshole. If you don't want your younger cousin playing with your toys, especially one that's expensive, has sentimental value, put it on a high shelf and just say no. I don't know, when I was little, it was a no-brainer. If someone said no, you don't play with it, doesn't mean you go and ruin it. So let's read what others think. Not the asshole. And your sis is raising one entitled kid. That's what I think too. The sense of entitlement these days, it's just unfathomable. Whatever. Maybe send her the bill for the doll and she'll realize it's not just a stupid toy. Even more likely she'll call you a bully. Probably. OP, your sister deliberately wouldn't let you speak because she didn't want to hear your side. Write it out and email it to her and ask her to mirror it back to you. For example, repeat what you said back to you in her own words before she can move forward. Stand by that. She needs to hear and acknowledge your side in this before you can resolve it, not the asshole. Let's see. It also works well in reverse. If someone else is upset, you listen to them and say, I just want to make sure I understand. It sounds as though you're concerned about blank. Nearly always diffuses the situation. People often just want to be heard. True. My husband and my son. It's cute. For the most part, people are saying not the asshole. I think I might do one more. And yes, it's a long video, but I'm just kind of dipping my toes in the water of longer videos and more of this forum. And please let me know if you like this. If you do, I'll continue to do more Reddit. Like, they have Reddit, like, horrible mother-in-law stories. Like, those are crazy. Relationship stories, tons of stuff. Let's see. Okay. Am I the asshole for crying of sadness when my sister announced her pregnancy? I, 17, female, have an older sister, Beth, 23, female. 2 years ago, Beth gave birth to a baby boy, Leo. She suffered intense postpartum depression, to the extent where her boyfriend, Leo's father, kicked her out with the baby for some reason, and she came to live with us. I can't go into details, but her depression was severe. It made life a living hell for me, to come home from school and deal with my extremely depressed sister and a newborn baby. At the time, Beth literally couldn't stand to even look at Leo, and my parents were busy with work, so I was put in the difficult position of doing most of the care for baby Leo, even though I literally had zero experience with babies, and my depressed sister wouldn't lift a finger to help. I would describe that year as the worst of my life. I feel like my sister's postpartum depression was rubbing off on me because I felt sad every day. Beth was in therapy during that year, and she did eventually get better and gradually started wanting to be more involved with Leo. Her boyfriend eventually took her and Leo back. I wasn't happy about this, but it was her decision. And she started actually being a good mom to Leo. I was relieved, honestly, and so were my parents. It was like a huge weight lifted from my shoulders, and every day I came home from school, I could come home to a happy environment instead of a sad, toxic one. So, flash forward to last weekend. Beth, her boyfriend, now fiance, and baby Leo came over for dinner. My grandparents were also there. After we finished dinner, we were having dessert, and out of the blue, Beth and her boyfriend made an announcement. She was pregnant with a second child. I did try to put on a brave face and not show my emotions, but I was teary-eyed. My grandmother noticed. She leaned in and asked me what's the matter, and unfortunately, the floodgates just opened uncontrollably. It seemed everyone was caught off guard, but they all immediately knew what I was crying about. I could hear Beth's boyfriend mutter something, and then storm out of the room, and I didn't catch what he said. Beth started snapping at me, and it's a bit of a blur, but I think she asked, "Why the hell are you crying?" And I said something like, How do you know you won't get depressed again and I'll be put in the same position? She was really angry, and my parents had to defuse the situation and send them home. Now in the aftermath, I'm getting a lot of criticism from my parents. They think I overreacted and made a happy moment into a sad moment. They believe Beth is right to be pissed. They wish I could have been more supportive and happy for my sister instead of making it about me and my feelings. They also think I'm an asshole for questioning her choice to have another child just because she had postpartum depression after the first. I'm not an expert, so I don't know, but it's a big fear of mine that the same thing will happen again and I'll be stuck in the same position. Am I the asshole? It sounds really sad, first of all. And if you have postpartum with one child, it doesn't necessarily mean you'll have it with the next, but right now I'm kind of, going through postpartum depression and anxiety. I'm going to therapy. I'm getting help. It's like, I understand. It wasn't that severe, but okay, not the asshole. Did no one ever realize how much this impacted you? You have the right to your feelings and concerns. PPD is usually worse with number 2. I didn't know that. Not just that, but clearly nobody has looked at OP and said 2 important things that absolutely need to be said. This was never your burden to bear, and the fact that you did is the fault of your parents, your sister, and her boyfriend. 2, you need therapy as soon as possible, since this has clearly scarred you in many ways. It's just sad. Okay. This is a long one. I got 17 words. Yep, they're invalidating OP's feelings to fit their narrative. It's important for OP to know that this is what is happening. OP, your feelings are valid, and your family isn't just disagreeing with you about what happened. They are refusing to acknowledge how it affected you and invalidating your experiences, because their response wasn't to say that Beth has learned how to deal with her PPD through therapy or that her boyfriend will be present this time, which shouldn't be the correct response. They didn't even say that they didn't realize how much they put on you or that they'll pick up the slack this time. They told you that you're overreacting, which shows they think that parentifying you was an okay choice. They flipped the narrative to make you the offender when in reality you are the victim. I'm guessing you are a senior in high school. You'll probably still be at home when the baby arrives, but please make your college decisions based on what you want, not based on whether your sister will need you. Do not give up your future because your sister and nibblings may need you for a year. If anyone tries to argue, just repeat firmly, I am not their parent. The nibblings have 2 parents. They do not and should not need you to step up. I agree. That's really heartbreaking. Okay, this isn't Am I the Asshole, but this is about baby bumps. Like, when I was pregnant, I was reading this. This is just quick. My husband's parents just texted him, this is a rant, and said, we would like to see a photo of your wife to see how she is growing. He and I both found it so weird. Would any of you be weirded out by that? It bothers me that they feel entitled to photos of my body and that they asked my husband instead of asking me. I'm a relatively private person, haven't sent bump pictures to literally anyone. They said that they want it because they don't see me every week. They just saw me 2 weeks ago and will probably see me next week. And my father-in-law asked me last week how much weight I've gained so far, which we also found strange. Am I just being overly sensitive about this? No, that's weird. My husband just responded with a photo of a whale. I agree, it's weird. Like, I look pregnant. It's not like there's a lot of variation. And then OP put, laugh my ass off. I like the whale idea. I'll do just that. So, yeah, that's weird. I would be very uncomfortable if I was asked that. So anyway, hope you guys like that. Again, let me know if you want me to continue this, and I don't know, kind of long form too, because when I get a chance, I'll absolutely try. And yeah, I don't know I don't know, I like constructive criticism, not just mean like, hey, you're ugly or anything, but yeah, just suggestions, let me know. I appreciate it. And yeah, just always let me know. So I hope you guys have a good one, and as I can't, my son, and as always, don't be an asshole. Bye guys.